Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King, peace on earth and mercy mild.
Yeah, Corey, this isn't a Christmas episode.
Well, it kinda is.
How so?
You know, it's set on Christmas Eve.
Maybe it is a Christmas episode.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Time of the Whovians United. Today we've got a review of a Christmas episode. That isn't a Christmas episode, but it kinda is. It's the Unquiet Dead. Today you're joined by me, Corey, Farron and George. You know what, this could be quite an interesting video because I'm aware, for some of us at least, you're not quite sure where this episode lies. You know, is it a fail or a pass? So I'm quite interested to see where this actually goes for you. But without further ado, let's get into it then. So Farron, your initial thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, this episode is certainly an interesting one. I hadn't seen this episode since like 2017-ish, because I did a massive rewatch of Doctor Who from Series 5 to, not Series 5, 2005 to, 2017. But it's okay. I think it's fine. It's serviceable, but it definitely could have been better. And it is very dire in some places, quite dull in some places, but that's not to say it's not without its good stuff. It is definitely better than the majority of, Series 11 and Series 12. But yeah, it still lacks, like, some excitement and some intrigue. Like, there's not much of that in here. It felt a bit, like, not rushed. It feels very quick. It's not like it drags out. It's not necessarily a story that feels really long. It actually feels quite short. When it was over, I was like, really? That was 45 minutes? Really? Wow, okay. But yeah, it's quite creepy in some places. It's quite, it's got a bit of a horror movie atmosphere that I quite like. But yeah, it's not fantastic, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, George, I'm interested to see, how do you differ, if anything?
My initial thoughts, I watched it twice this year. One was early this year for the 15 years and one for this review. Honestly, I'm very conflicted on, because at the very end of this review, we've got to do a pass or a fail. And I'm kind of on a middle ground. I didn't think it was great. Neither thought it was bad. It's just a bit, You could tell the CGI, the zombies, it's put me in stitches. It was very fun. A nice comedy. I said to Farron before we recorded, but the characters save the story, in my opinion. I love the Doctor and Charles humor together. It's just, and Rose is really
Agreed.
good. And Rose is really good in this episode. It is very controversial, but I prefer Long Game to the Unquiet Dead. It's more or less like, I want to switch my brain off and watch something like at 11 o'clock. And I think this episode, it's not really entertaining to me. I really want to switch it off and probably watch a better episode. When I say it's mediocre, it is better than any episode of the current era. Maybe Nikola Tesla, but yeah.
Right, you know what? I agree with you both. You see, for me, there's a lot of nostalgia with this episode. I do believe it's the first episode I ever watched as a child. I believe I missed out Rose by about 2 weeks. Yeah, I know. I believe this is the first one I ever saw, so it's quite engraved in my mind. I do remember it very, very well. But yeah, I love the tone. I love the tone of it. It's very like dark, horror, gothic, 60s. See, this is where I understand where people, think about this, because for me, as a fan of the 60s, the classic era, I love the sort of stories that are very slow and tense and atmospheric, and the dark and the build-up, like Two on the Sidemen or The Web of Fear, for example, or The Ice Warriors. I can see why people like you would not like it, because you're a fan of the new series with all the action and the fast-paced, movement and lots of music. Whereas for me, I actually do enjoy this quite a bit due to my love of the 60s. But I find it very atmospheric, it's very scary, and you know what? It's probably, for me anyway, Mark Gatiss's best story. I'll have to review his other episodes, of course, but I'm pretty sure, I think it is one of his best. So yeah, then we'll go then to characters and villains there, Farron. What do you think of them?
Completely adore the characters in this story. They're actually the best part of the story. If the characters weren't as charismatic as they are, then the story would have just been really dull. I think the comedy is really great between, especially between Christopher Eccleston and the guy who plays Charles Dickens. And the guy who plays Charles Dickens, he does a marvelous job. He's absolutely wonderful in the role. And the ending with him, like, it's very reminiscent of the ending of A Christmas Carol when he's like, "Oh, God bless us, everyone." I really liked it. Gwyneth, she was pretty good for what she served a good role, and she was quite creepy. And I love the scene with her and Rose when they're talking about, like, you know, ditching school and stuff. And it's a really nice scene. Speaking of, Rose was actually tolerable in this story, as she's actually quite tolerable for the majority of series 1. I think it's just series 2 where she goes downhill. Though she didn't really do much, did she? And I feel like that's the main problem that I have with the characters in the story, is that they didn't do much. Like, for the majority of the story, I was like, why is Charles Dickens here? Like, he's not servicing the plot in any way. But yeah, I think the characters are definitely the best part of the story.
Yeah, so George, you would agree, don't you? So what do you think of the characters overall? You said you like them, they're the best part.
I agree with everything Fran said about Charles Dickens and
Yay.
For someone who, I'm going to start with Rose, because as a Rose Tyler fanboy, yes, fan, I said first review, so I'm going to start this. So I just loved her first reaction to the past, with her like apprehensive of stepping on the snow rather than the future, because the past has already happened. It's more delicate. You see how excited she is. It's just a really good reaction. But I like her just like standing up to herself. Like the Doctor and Rose's dynamic, they both challenge each other. At the end of the day, like, they both have valid points. Like, I understand why the Doctor, for example, wants the girls to come here, because obviously the Time War, he's responsible for them, and you know, it's a dying race. For Rose, it's more or less like trying to respect the dead. Like, you prove both. The point is that, like, involving Charles Dickens, it was a really good idea for series 1, because let's be honest, he is a recognisable name. Viewers, like young or old, would know who he is. The side characters, Gwyneth and random old guy who just says, "Stop it, Kel, stop it." It's just.
He doesn't do much, does he?
He doesn't.
I think he just kind of summed up his character and like.
Yeah, he's just there, just like, "Stop it, girl." I just think he's a bit of an asshole, but that's just. For me, I have a lot of fun watching Charles Dickens and the Doctor, but the rest of the story is a bit iffy for me.
Yeah, you know what? I've got to really agree with you both here. But I think the characters in the story are pretty good. I think for me, standout's got to be Gwyneth. You know, I think she's an excellent character. She's well developed. She's, you know, obviously very of her time, but she really wants to try to break those boundaries. You know, even though she's a woman, she deserves to have more credit than she's due. And yeah, so she just tried to stand up to Mr. Sneed, and she does have that bit of, you know, shyness when she, you know, he does, you know, shout back at her, but she just have that want to try and break those boundaries and actually show that she's a woman and she can be a bit more independent. And you know what, her sacrifice at the end, you know, it's just so heartbreaking. You know, the realization the Doctor's like, oh yeah, she's dead, but I can't, you know, and she gives her life to make sure they all live and can take down the girl, because obviously they took advantage of her, and you know, they screwed her over. So Rose, caring and relatable. The chat with her in the kitchen is brilliant. I find it interesting how, you know, obviously this is Rose's second outing with the Doctor, and as soon as there's trouble, she's like, "Oh, I got him! I'll get him!" And I just find it really interesting how, you know, in a second outing, she's already on it, like, initiative, right? I'm going to do something about this. I know what to do. I find
she's really good in series 1. I like.
You know, that's it. I find it very, very interesting. On a second outing, she's already on it. Like, yes, I've got it done. So I'll do it. You know, and I know what to do. But yeah,
well, Amy was like that as well, but you know.
To be fair, yeah. Then, you know,
but I mean, Rose is better than Amy. Just saying.
We'll not
you
go there.
little.
We'll not go there, shall
Oh my
we? We'll not go there. Charles Dickens, you know what? It's just, you know, brilliant characterization. I think they got him on bang on. You know, I love the whole Victorianism. You know, the Phantasmagoria, or what the Shakespeare. I thought that.
What the Shakespeare?
What the Shakespeare?
What the Dickens?
I love that. I love that, this Victorianism, and I love the scene in the carriage where the Doctor's like, "I'm not the biggest fan." It's like, in what the way do you resemble what it means to keep yourself cool? It's just I just love it. And and even though he's a writer who's got a creative mind, it's quite cool to see how he processes everything. Like, he sees something that's obviously not of this world, and his first reaction to go, "It's a fake, it's a fraud, it's a trick." You know, and no matter what the Doctor says, he can't really process it. until even in the end, he's just like, what is life? What have I done all these years? Have I wasted it? What?
He took something out of this. He took inspiration, though he wouldn't write it.
And actually, you know what, I actually think this is a good way, because obviously he did write about ghosts and things. So this story would have been a good way to, you know, have an inspiration for Charles Dickens, I suppose, to write a Christmas Carol or.
Yeah, that would have been
whatnot.
better, I think.
I
Yeah.
like
They
how
mentioned
historicals like actually like get something out of this.
Yeah.
In the Doctor.
Yeah. And then finally you got the Gelf, you know, manipulative and cunning. You know, at the start they're all very scary and ghost-like, and you don't really trust them. But then when they come like, actually, we got damaged by the Time War, we need your help, you kind of think, I don't trust them, but we'll see. And you know what I mean? And just how they manipulate them, how they use the Doctors, you know, because obviously the Doctor feels bad about the Time War, so he feels like he has to try to repay them. He feels responsible because obviously they lost their form through the Time War. He feels like he has to do something about this, and they took advantage of that. And that's how manipulative that they were. But yeah, very cunning, very, very cunning, but scary. I said they're pretty scary, to be fair. As a kid anyway, very, very scary. So we'll now go on to the random thoughts. Is there anything else we want to mention we've not already mentioned before, Farron? Anything extra?
Right, okay, I've got quite a lot of stuff to say with the random thoughts, so I'm gonna try and whiz through it. I like the opening, very creepy stuff. I loved Mr. Sneed's reaction to he's like, crap, we got another one. It's all that kind of is like that building of intrigue and stuff. And the episode is actually quite funny, and I do think it definitely is more funny than scary. And I think Mark Gatiss is very good at writing like very witty dialogue. And when going into this episode, I wrote in my notes here. I can't help but have a feeling of dread going into this episode. Because obviously I hadn't seen it in years, and then I was like, oh god, is it bad? Is it good? I don't know. Also, fun fact, the directions that the Doctor gives Rose to the wardrobe are the same directions that Capaldi gave to Bill in Thin Ice. To find the wardrobe.
Like spot on,
nice Easter egg.
And they're both in historical episodes. So
they are both historical episodes. They are both episode 3, and they are both the second outing for a new companion.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I love Rose taking her first step in the snow. You talked about this earlier, George. I genuinely love it. You really get a sense of adventure and a sense of like, what's this? You know, let's go and explore. And that's like what I love about Doctor Who, and I'm sure everybody loves it about Doctor Who, and it is something that is sorely, sorely lacking in the Chibnall era. Yeah, Gwyneth and Rose's conversation is actually a really nice scene. The dialogue's really good. I talked about that earlier. And then there's the Volta, like the sudden change in the scene where she starts like reading her mind, and it's subtle at first, and she's asking her about her dad and how he died, and she's like, hang on a second, how did you know that? Good build-up of intrigue and everything. They don't explain where her psychic powers come from.
They don't. No, they don't. That's the only thing about this.
It's weird. Like it kind of reminded me of Hyde with Emma Grayling. They didn't explain where her empath powers came from. It's weird. She's like a superhero. I put in my notes here. Wow, I forgot so much about this episode, which I did. And I feel like that's not good. Like it's really forgettable. Also, did the Doctor forget that he can regenerate at the end? When he's like, we're gonna die. I'm like, you're not gonna die, even if they do get to you, because you can regenerate. I don't know, maybe there's something. I suppose
he's not even had that chat yet with Rose. I don't know, actually.
Although it would have been nice to go, like, you're gonna die, I'm gonna live, sorry. Yeah, no.
Unless he was just saying that just to kind of give him a bit more time, I don't know, to try and think of a plan, even though it wasn't really a plan. I don't know.
I feel like my theory behind it is that maybe like the Gelth would have stopped his regeneration cycle, like in The Impossible Astronaut.
I suppose they do hold him personally responsible for them losing their forms. I suppose he kind of felt like
because it is canonical that like if you stop, if you kill a Time Lord during regeneration, that's the thing in Turn Left.
You know what? I think they would have done that. You know.
So maybe that's it, but you know who knows.
I reckon they would have definitely took revenge on him. I think.
Yeah, and the last thing I wrote here in my notes after the episode was finished was, it's okay. So, and I think that sums up the episode.
That's a good sign, I suppose. That's a good sign.
It's okay. Anyway, sorry.
Have you got any more to add to Farron's long list of things, George? Any more?
As the viewers who's watching this video is like, Farron, you got like thousands of points. George comes around with 1 point. So
and that's okay.
Sorry,
that's okay.
I don't know what to say.
You're allowed to have one point.
Basically, just to be as quick as simple, all the characters are just woven into the story really well. The side characters, the old guy and Gwyneth, that's his name. I don't care. So they're searching for the old lady. Gwyneth, she's used her psychic powers, see where she is, and then she says the old lady's going to see the great man, and then boom, Charles Dickens is introduced. Kind of like depressed, he feels like this is just a loop. He feels tired, and by the end of it, he's like, oh, I'm so inspired. I'm going to see my family. So he's already woven into the story, and then you get the third part is the Doctor and Rose just walking around. But like one thing I just like specifically, I don't know why, but like when they're just running off to go into, I don't know, I don't know where they're going actually, but when they leave the shot, you actually see the horse carriages, the old man and Gwyneth just in the background. So it's just like, I don't know why I like that exactly. But yeah, that's my random thoughts. Not too long. I just like how all three of it. Right. That's all.
Okay, I've got a little bit to add. I've already mentioned about the feel to it. I think the music. You know what? I like it's very atmospheric. It's very 60s to me. Horror inspired. I just love the music, to be fair. When it's used in the right places, it's used really well. It's got the 60s feel, as I've already mentioned. We mentioned the Christmas thing, how it's being set at Christmas and how it kind of ties into A Christmas Carol. I'm not too sure if I think he might have wrote some more books and stories and novels about ghosts. Well, I think, was that a joke about the Blue Eternals? Was that a real thing? I don't actually know. But yeah, I think it ties in well with the whole Christmas Carol. And to be fair, he does become Scrooge, in a way. He starts off with no aspirations and feeling tired, and at the end, to be fair, I think Dickens does become Scrooge in a way in this story. But you touched on something, Farron, I'd like to actually extend on a bit more. When she was like, about your dad, about you miss him. That's a great little bit of a teaser for Father's Day, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It shows how early on, as soon as she knows that time travel to the past is possible, you can see her thought process already start to develop. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah,
that's a very good little bit of a tease to the fact.
See how well thought out this series was.
Exactly. You can see how early she started having those feelings, like, oh my god, time travel to the past. My dad. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a cool little bit of a tie-in there. Really good little bit of a teaser to tie into other episodes. As you said, series 1 does it really, really well. All right, we'll move on to the best, our favourite part of the review. So I think to say it's time for the cringe of the episode. I don't know about you if you found any actual cringe. Well, we'll go through. I kind of found it a bit hard.
I was very hard pressed to find one.
I think a lot of jokes and lines kind of hit quite well. I think they were genuinely quite funny. But we'll go anyway, Farron. Have you got anything close to cringy then? Have you?
I like the way that the Gelf are so like obviously evil.
Right.
Because they are. They're like, pity us, help us, please. And I'm like, you're so obviously evil. Like, I don't know how the Doctor fell for it, because they are just so obviously evil. And I know, yes, I've seen this episode before, so obviously I know what happens. But I genuinely feel like if this was my first time watching the episode, I'd be like, well, no, because they're evil, because I can tell, because they're so obviously faking it. And it's just, I found that quite amusing. But and the Doctor's so shocked, he's like, oh, you're evil. And I'm like, well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, so,
Go on then, okay. George, have you got anything else to battle that
yes,
with?
I do. It is the opening scene. It's
okay.
Really?
Lady, she's like, leaves the building. It goes into the intro, like she's walking like she's drugged, and her sounds like. It's just I was in stitches when I saw that.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of that scene in Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
With the old guy, and they're singing this song, and the guy just there goes.
You know what? When you mentioned to me, George, about you're going to make a sound effect for the review, I was like, I think I know where you're going with this. It wasn't quite where I thought it was going to go, but I thought you was when the girl leaves the body and they start screaming like, ah! I thought that was going to be it.
Oh.
When they scream as they leave the body. You know what I mean? I thought that was the cringe bit where you was going to mention, to be honest.
I just find it funny, but like it wasn't intentionally funny. So I would
Anyway, yeah. So I put that down, but I suppose you know when Rose is locked in the room, and then the doctor comes in and he goes, "I think that's my dance," and he pulls her away.
Oh yeah.
It's awkwardly.
But the thing is though, it's just basically he just comes in, grabs her. I think that's my dance. And those two just stand there gawking at him like.
Yeah, that's weird.
Hello.
Why didn't they like? How easy was it for the doctor to just grab her? You know, it's just.
But I suppose, and then I know the whole biggest fan. I find that quite funny, but that's probably I don't know. There's a lot of lines that are quite funny, but it could be cringy. You know, like I said before with Mr. Sneak, like, "Oh, the dead are walking again," or "Getting restless," or you know when the doctor opens up the door and he goes, "Problem with the gas." So I don't know. There's a lot of really funny lines, which I'm not.
But
really
I do like Christopher Eccleston's one-liners throughout series 1. It's quite
cringy.
funny.
He's so good.
I think they're very good. They hit the landing really well. It's very hard to say the cringy, depends on who you are, but there's quite a few funny lines to be fair.
Which one can we over?
What are we going to agree on then? Should we agree on one, or can we say there isn't a cringe of the week? Can we do that?
I think we should choose George's.
Yeah. So we'll agree on that. Then the opening scene with the old lady coming towards the camera, that we'll use that as our cringe of the week.
Mhm.
So now it's time for the most important part: is did it fail? So then, Farron, fail or no fail? That is the question.
Honestly, I don't think it failed. It's definitely not terrible. It's not a bad episode at all.
Get it?
It's just a bit dull, but it's definitely not as bad as I remember it being. And I gave it a 6 out of 10, a 6.7 out of 10.
Bad.
So
That
there you
ain't
go.
bad at all. George, no pressure then, no pressure. Fail or no
Okay.
fail?
So I said you'd be shocked, Corey, because my
Go on.
previous viewing would be a fail. But I agree with Farron. It's dull, it's boring, but the characters really say this. But for me, I would only watch this episode in a marathon. I wouldn't watch it separately.
Yeah, no, same with me. Yeah,
I
Okay.
would say it made it to a pass, but it could be middle
but
ground.
only just.
Just
So is it
just-
a
it's
5?
great
Is it a
bit.
5 out of 10, would you say then?
5 out of 10. 5.
That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. You know what? I think nostalgia really plays with this one to me. I'll be open with this. I feel it's a 10 out of 10, to be honest. It's one of those classical nostalgic ones that I just love. So obviously it's not a fail for me. So you know what? It's great. You know, the Unquiet Dead overall wasn't a fail, which is pretty good.
The next fail is going to be an actual Christmas special.
An
it's
actual one
very
this time,
interesting.
yeah. It's
Yay.
a real one. It's a real one. We'll take. But which one? Well,
It
you
is
know, I'll wait and
it is
find
a
out.
Capaldi story, just saying that.
Just giving it away.
Well, that
now,
narrows
isn't
it down, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So-
that narrows it down. Well, there
Narrows
you go,
it
guys.
down.
That narrows it down. Yeah. Well, there you go, guys. So that is our review of the Unquiet Dead. Thank God it didn't fail. What do you think as a home? What would you say? Put your thoughts down in the comments below. Give this video a nice big like, but most importantly, subscribe to help us get towards our goal of, I always say 2,000 subscribers. I don't know what these guys think, but
I would say 1.5.
I always say 2,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Make sure that you watch this week's middle of the week video. I know 2 videos a week. That's great, isn't it? I believe it's my His Dark Materials video, isn't it? Earlier this week. So make sure you go and watch that. We released that earlier this week, probably on the Wednesday. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. We shall see you next time. See ya.